Microsoft has moved to an entirely new approach for certification, focusing on role-based certs for Azure. But the roadmap has changed. And which ones are right for you? Well, whether you're in a technical role, or a sales role, or a managerial role, or you're looking for an entirely new role, that's what I'm here to answer. And in this video, I'm going to break down the certification tiers and what's in each of these exams to help you identify which exams you should focus on. And if you're new to this channel, free is my favorite price. So we'll be talking about resources from Microsoft and myself that will help you get across the finish line cost effectively, regardless of which path you choose, even if you don't have access to an Azure subscription. So let's talk about the Microsoft Azure and Security Certification Roadmap for 2021. Today, I'm going to give you the grand tour, the ultimate deep dive into your Azure certification options for 2021. So whether your role is technical or managerial, sales or pre-sales, stick with me. I have something for everyone, and we're going to break these down today to help you find your why when it comes to Azure certification, regardless of your role. But let's start by breaking down how Microsoft thinks about this new role-based certification strategy. So it starts with the exams being differentiated in some high-level buckets, like Azure, like Microsoft 365, Microsoft Dynamics 365, and Power Platform. And then you're going to find that exams are available in multiple technical levels. So there are fundamentals exams, which are great for managerial and sales roles. There are some specialty exams that really test your technical depth in a couple of industry-specific solutions. Not many of these, so I'll be surprised if most of you take a specialty exam. Lots of role-based technical certifications, and there are a couple of levels to these role-based certifications, as you'll learn today. So really, you're growing in complexity as you go up that stack. Today, we are going to focus on the Azure bucket. This is all about Azure certification with two exceptions. When we talk about security, there aren't a lot of security exams, so I'm going to step over into the Microsoft 365 bucket. We're going to talk about security as a whole, because you'll see Microsoft, when they visualize their security exams, they do kind of cross that boundary in some of their visuals as well. And the other area where I'm going to break that rule is when we talk about fundamentals. So with the fundamentals exams, I'm going to run the gamut. I'm going to give you all of the ways you can get your foot in the door when it comes to Azure certification. So when it comes to the Microsoft certification exams, really the way most people are looking at these are in three flavors. There are fundamentals, there are the associate, and there are the expert exam. And again, the depth and complexity grows as we move from fundamentals over to expert. So a less technical role, a managerial role, is going to do well in the fundamentals area because it's going to make you conversant in technologies appropriate to your role. Same for sales folks. You can be a very technical salesperson, but those fundamental exams are going to help you to have that conversation with your customers. Now, there's actually a fourth bucket called specialty. We're not going to spend too much time on this because there are only a couple of specialty exams today. There is the Azure IoT Developer specialization and an SAP on Azure exam. So these are really just industry-focused exams. It's only 2 exams, so for that reason, we're really not going to spend too much time there today. So the other thing to think about is what are the experience expectations for these various exam levels. So for fundamentals, Microsoft really assumes you're just getting started. This is really mastering the basics, being able to describe concepts, to really be conversant. At the associate level, there's an expectation of a couple of years of experience, some hands-on time with the technology. And at the expert level, the expectation is more like 2 to 5 years of experience, and really also meeting that associate qualification as a prerequisite. So while we're really going to be diving into what these exams are today, there are 5 additional questions you're going to be able to answer as an output of our discussion. So really, as we look at these exams, you're going to be able to answer the question, who? Am I the right person to be taking this particular exam? Am I role appropriate for this exam? We'll be thinking about which exams make sense for our role. We'll be thinking about when we want to take that exam. The answer is seldom take them all right now, right? There's not always a reason to take an exam today, so sometimes taking these exams just in time when it's appropriate to our role makes really good sense. We'll talk about that why. If you don't know why you're taking that certification exam, chances are you don't need to be taking that exam. You always want to find your why. Perhaps most importantly, we're going to answer the question, how? I'm going to show you how to get across the finish line quickly and efficiently and as close to free as possible. We only have so much time and so much money in this life, so I am a big fan of getting things done. So let's dive into all of the fundamentals exams that Microsoft has to offer. So do you want to know what all the Microsoft fundamentals certification exams have in common? Well, in a word, they're all optional. You don't have to take any fundamentals exam en route to achieving a Microsoft role-based certification. However, these fundamentals exams are a great foot in the door when you are new to a technology, when you're in a managerial or a sales role and you need to be conversant on that topic. A fundamentals exam is the perfect way to help yourself develop that vocabulary. And from a technical perspective, maybe you're coming from another cloud platform, this is a great foot in the door to get acquainted with the Microsoft stack. And when it comes to the fundamentals, the AZ900 Azure Fundamentals exam is where it all begins. In fact, if you're new to the Azure platform or new to cloud computing in general, this is a perfect place to start. This is the exam for you. In fact, I have a video over on the channel that will help you with some tips, tricks, and some free study resources to help you achieve AZ900 certification faster and easier, and incidentally free. If you spent $1 preparing for AZ900, you've spent too much. I'm here to say it. I've said it. And it's not just for technical folk. If you're in a management role, you're in a sales role, a pre-sales role, if you need to be conversant on Azure concepts, this is a great way to build your dialogue so you can have those conversations with your technical staff. And to make this even easier, if you look in the description below this video, you'll find the current links to some free practice questions for the AZ900 exam so you can assess your readiness. These will be updated from time to time, so I'm just going to keep the links down in the video description. So next up in the fundamentals lineup is DP900, Azure Data Fundamentals. So this covers foundational knowledge around data concepts. This is a great exam for folks who are beginning to work with data in the cloud. If you look at the exam description, it does assume that you have familiarity with concepts like relational and non-relational data, with concepts like transactional or analytical data. I'm here to tell you if you don't, if you need to build this vocabulary to communicate with your DBAs, if you are yourself an aspiring DBA, tackle this exam anyway. It's the perfect way to build that foundational knowledge as you prepare. So what material should I use to prepare for Microsoft certification exams? Well, there are several, so let's start at the beginning. So to show you one resource to start it off, we're going to go over to the kind of Certification Central on the Microsoft website, and I've searched for Azure Fundamental here to bring up the fundamentals exams for Azure, and I'll just look at AZ900. So every exam is going to have that description of who should take the exam, what the skills are that are covered, but as you scroll down below the scheduling area here, you'll find not only the skills measured in that download, but you'll find two types of training. You'll find instructor-led paid training, or my favorite, which is the free online training. And what you'll find is that the learning here maps to the exam. So these 6 courses in the case of AZ900 map to the 6 objective domains on the exam. So this material is designed to help you pass the AZ900 exam, and that's really the focus of many of these MS Learn training sets, is to help you pass Microsoft role-based certifications. So couple this with some of those free practice questions that I offered up, as well as some of the preparatory videos we have out there on YouTube, and you are good to go to prepare for that exam without spending a bunch of money to do it. So next up in the fundamentals lineup is AI 900, which is Azure AI Fundamentals. So this exam is testing your mastery of foundational knowledge of machine learning and artificial intelligence concepts. There is no assumption that you have a technical background, though. This exam is advertised as being appropriate for folks with technical and non-technical backgrounds. So if you're in a managerial role or a sales role and you need to develop this dialogue, this vocabulary, so you can have discussions with technical and business colleagues, this is a great exam. And there's no assumption that you have any data science or software engineering experience. It's absolutely not required. However, in an exam like this, if you do have some knowledge of programming concepts or a little bit of hands-on experience from, maybe from university, that's always going to be helpful. If you don't have that, don't worry too much about it. So I mentioned that when we're talking about fundamentals exams, we'd go across the board outside strictly the Azure category. So this next exam does exactly that. This is MS 900, which is Microsoft 365 Fundamentals. Microsoft markets this exam as testing your knowledge of options and benefits of Microsoft 365 cloud service offerings. So while this would be a great exam for a technical persona who needs to get acquainted with the Microsoft 365 family, you can see by this statement alone, this is going to be a great exam for those in managerial roles or sales roles who need to have conversations with customers or business and technical stakeholders and colleagues. Goes on to say that you should have the requisite knowledge to recommend solutions that address common organizational IT challenges. So this exam not only wants to ensure that you can describe the Microsoft 365 solutions, but you know where they fit in solving problems that your organizations may encounter. So recommending solutions is on the table. Additionally, the description mentions that you should have fundamental knowledge of offerings, optimizing licensing for cost effectiveness and support options. So you need to not only know what the Microsoft 365 solutions are and where they fit, but how they're licensed, so you know if you're making a recommendation that makes financial sense for your organization. And it goes on to say that you should be able to differentiate between Microsoft 365, Azure, and Dynamics 365, so you can sort the services and the products out. No real surprise there. Next up is PL 900, which is the Microsoft Power Platform Fundamentals exam. So the PL 900 is going to test your ability to improve productivity by understanding the capabilities of the Power Platform. So improve productivity is the key phrase here. If you're in a technical role, we're always interested in automating processes. If you're in a managerial role, improving productivity, is often a core component of your job. And really with Power Platform, the key phrase is low code. So even if you're not a deeply technical person, Power Platform really opens the door to a lot of possibilities. So what exactly is the deal with the Power Platform? So if you're not familiar, Power Platform is a low-code platform that spans Office 365, Azure, Dynamics 365, and standalone applications. You can touch many third-party data sources without writing code. So Power Platform is composed of 4 core components, starting with Power BI, which is your business analytics. So this is how you're going to visualize data. There is Power Apps, which is application development in a low-code environment, so I can build something more of a desktop experience. I can build an app that renders great on a mobile device. I've built a few mobile-friendly apps with Power Apps myself. There's Power Automate, which you may know as Microsoft Flow in its previous name, which allows you to automate processes with little or no code. And the newest member of the Power Platform family are Power Virtual Agents. So you can build an intelligent chat bot with little or no code. It's really simplifying the underlying technologies, which are the Microsoft Bot Framework, the NLP or natural language processing capabilities there. One of my favorite features of Power Virtual Agents is I can make not only a low-code solution come to life here, but I can make calls from Power Virtual Agents over to Power Automate. So I can, from my chatbot, take a user's request and trigger a flow in Power Automate to go collect information or perform an action and then return information back in to that conversation with that user seamlessly. So fantastic capabilities there. Now, under the hood, you have some very important components to be aware of here. So there are data connectors, and there are more than 250 data connectors that will connect you to a variety of not only Microsoft services and data sources, but third parties like ServiceNow. AI Builder is a fairly new offering from Microsoft that gives you some out-of-the-box AI models, some of which are completely trained. For example, identifying customer sentiment in social media. That model is built for you out of the box. No need to train it. They do have some other models in there that you can train with your data to solve your problems. But as I say, this is really the right technology at the right time. So if you're not familiar with Power Platform, PL900 is a great way to sort of help yourself dive into that technology to a meaningful end, which is to pass this exam. And then rounding out our fundamentals options is MB901, which is Microsoft Dynamics Fundamentals. This one covers positioning and benefits of adopting Dynamics 365. So again, if your organization is a Dynamics 365 consumer, if you're in a sales role, going to be a perfectly appropriate exam for you, even in that non-technical role. And now we're moving into the next classification, which are the associate level exams. These are your role-based certifications. So your associate exams will all have one thing in common, and that's that they assume you have hands-on experience. Remember, the experience assumption here is 2 years of experience. So this means deep technical knowledge. This is not an exam for managers and sales roles. This is really that technical persona trying to demonstrate deep knowledge. Now, before we dive into the associate level and expert exams, I want to just give you one tip here that's going to eliminate a lot of wasted time, and that's when you're looking at the skills measured, focus on the verbs. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to navigate over to that Microsoft Certification Central area, and I've searched for Azure Associate, so I'm bringing up those associate level Azure focused certifications, and I'll look at Azure Administrator Associate here. So if I scroll down in this exam, I'll see in skills measured, there are some verbs here that tell me where I need to focus, like manage Azure identities and governance, implement and manage storage, deploy and manage compute resources. So this tells me that my focus here is going to be hands-on implementation and ongoing management. So I'm not worried about design and architecture. I'm worried about that day-to-day doing, implementing and managing. So that's going to really help me focus my study. And if you take that a step further and open that full skills measured guide, that idea around focusing on the verbs goes all the way down to the line item level in this skills measured in this exam prep guide. Do bear in mind that all of these skills measured documents mention that they are not exhaustive, which means that there can be some nooks and crannies that come up that maybe aren't mentioned explicitly in this exam. So just keep that tucked in the back of your head. So we'll start our dive into the associate level exams by looking at the security exams. So there are 2 associate level security certifications, and that is the Azure Security Engineer Associate and then the Microsoft 365 Security Administrator Associate. And these are in fact the only 2 security focused exams in the Microsoft catalog in that regard. So let's start with AZ500, which is Azure Security Engineer Associate. So this one is focused on implementing security controls and threat protection around identity management, data, apps, network, and hybrid environments. In other words, this is focusing on features and services in Azure as opposed to Microsoft 365. So you'll see questions on a wide variety of technology, from Azure VMs to storage to networks to database services to Azure Kubernetes, Key Vault, as well as into the security solutions themselves, like Azure Security Center, like Azure Sentinel. And when it comes to AZ500, I have you covered. So you'll find that I have videos out here for Number one, how should you prepare for AZ500? And yes, it is possible to prepare very effectively for AZ500 for free, or very nearly so, depending on how you want to go about it. So I've got a great video you see there that I absolutely recommend you should start with. Many folks are reporting great results with my AZ500 exam cram series that's really helping to cement the core exam concepts and to focus your study and to help you identify your weak spots to focus your study. I added an interesting new offering this time around as well, and that's an AZ500 practice exam question series. It's 4 parts, it's 120 questions, and I actually talk you through the questions. It's quizzing you visually and verbally, so you can actually listen to this when you're on the road and can't even watch. But getting some good comments about that. I'd be interested to hear what you think of this format. Now, on the other hand, we have MS500, which is the Microsoft 365 Security Admin Associate exam. So this one is focused on implementation, management, and monitoring of security and compliance solutions for Microsoft 365 and hybrid environments. But it's Microsoft 365, so you'll be touching on technologies like Azure Info Protection, like Microsoft Cloud App Security, like Microsoft Data Loss Prevention. So a very different focus from a security perspective. In fact, there's very little overlap between these two exams. You'll need to prepare for them independently. And again, at the associate level, this assumes a couple of years of experience. It assumes hands-on. So you're not going to clear the bar for either of these without some good hands-on preparation. Now we're going to move from security into data. So there is the Data Engineer Associate level certification, and this one's different from the other associate level certs in that it requires more than one exam. So it requires DP200, which is implementing an Azure data solution, and it requires DP201, which is designing an Azure data solution, and those two together bring us to the Azure Data Engineer Associate certification. So a little bit different in that you've got multiple exams. So what does data mean exactly? Well, the best way to summarize it for you is to just jump over to the skills measured into the training content, and this will give you a great idea. So here is the Azure Data Engineer Associate homepage. I'll look at implementing an Azure data solution, so DP200. And if I scroll down below the scheduling there, below skills measured, and look at the training, you're going to notice the training here. They have Azure for the data engineer, storing data in Azure. So we can guess that probably includes even some modules on Azure storage. And if I scroll down here, sure enough, we're talking about Azure storage even. But continuing on there, we have a module on working with relational data, working with NoSQL data, working with large-scale data processing, so into the world of data warehousing. So a pretty broad range of technologies and very deep as well. Remember that associate level cert requires hands-on. So we have 4 other associate level certs we want to talk about. You're going to see some familiar topics from the fundamentals area, although we're going to go deeper since it's an associate level exam. So there's DA100, which is Azure Data Analyst Associate. There's DP300, which is Azure Database Admin Associate. There's AI100, which is Azure AI Engineer Associate. And DP100, which is Azure Data Scientist Associate. So just a reminder here, associate level certs means we're not talking about managerial or sales roles here. These are going to be deeply technical professionals. This is a technology-focused exam, and they're all going to be deep in their own right. So let's start with DA100, the Data Analyst Associate. So this exam is focused on Power BI. So enabling your business to maximize the value of their data assets using Power BI expects you to be able to prepare, model, visualize, and analyze the data, and then to deploy and maintain those deliverables. So to work with your Power BI dashboard. So as you can see, this means very hands-on in terms of your role with Power BI for DA100. So next up is DP300, so the Azure Database Admin Associate. This one covers implementation and management of cloud-native and hybrid data platform solutions. So most enterprises have data on-prem and in the cloud. And so in this case, we'll be touching on both Microsoft SQL Server and Azure Data Services. Next up is DP100, so that's Azure Data Scientist Associate. This is application of your knowledge of data science and machine learning to implement and run machine learning workloads in Azure, so hands-on with machine learning. So they expect that you can set up an Azure machine learning workspace, you can train, optimize, manage, deploy, and then consume your models. So this definitely assumes that you have some domain-specific knowledge around data science, around machine learning. So AI 100 is the Azure AI Engineer Associate. So this one focuses on a demonstration of your expertise of using Microsoft Cognitive Services, machine learning, and knowledge mining to architect and implement Microsoft AI solutions. So what the hell is knowledge mining? Well, if you don't know the definition, it's the first sign that you're not ready for this exam. So knowledge mining is an emerging discipline within artificial intelligence that basically uses a combination of services to quickly learn from vast amounts of information. So potentially employing multiple services and multiple data sets to bring all that together to come to insights for your business, or whatever problem it is that you're trying to solve using cognitive services and machine learning. But key here are the verbs. Remember I said follow the verbs, right? So architect and implement. So really architect is something akin to design, right? So you have to know both sides of the coin. This exam is going to be a monster. So definitely know your role. And I think we can all look at the description we've gone through here and know if we fit into the AI 100 candidate category or not. If you're anything like me, you don't like to waste money running your Azure Lab VMs 24/7, and that's where the resource scheduler for Microsoft Azure can help. It's got a simple web UI making it an easy way to set up those VM run schedules, and it comes with a free lifetime sub for 10 VMs or less, and you can find it in the Azure Marketplace. You'll find a link in this video's description. And our last stop on the tour is a look into the expert level certification. So since we're Azure focused here at the expert level, we're going to talk about two of these. One is the DevOps Engineer Expert. The other is the Azure Solutions Architect Expert certification. So what do these expert level certs have in common? Well, multiple exams for one. So each of these have 2 exams required to achieve the certification. Remember that the expert level also comes with that expectation of 2 to 5 years experience and the associate level prerequisites. So let's look at the DevOps Engineer Expert exam. So this track we have an either or prerequisite path. So we have AZ-104, which is Azure Administrator Associate, or AZ-204, which is Azure Developer Associate. And you follow that up with AZ-400, which is designing and implementing Microsoft DevOps solutions. So both sides of the coin in terms of designing and implementing. So there's going to be a very broad subject matter here and very deep at the same time. But with that or designation, I wanted to point that out because you essentially have a choice to get to that DevOps Engineer Expert goal. You can go the more developer route with the Azure Developer Associate, or you can go the Azure Administrator route, which I would say is more IT pro friendly. So whether you're on the dev or the ops side of the equation, there is a path for you to the DevOps Engineer Expert certification. And I know many folks who hold this cert who are not developers in any sense of that word. So let's just pop over to the Microsoft certification portal and we'll look at the DevOps Engineer Expert and pull this one up. You see here you have the links to your individual exams or that AZ-400. And from here I can see my skills measured. I can get down to that free training. Very important, right? The free training, which is going to give you some hands-on lab exercises. You have to have the hands-on. And then if I look at the skills measured document, this particular exam, AZ-400 that is, was changed. It was updated in November 2020, and the guide actually has some markup to show you what change. So if you've already been preparing for this exam, have a look at those changes. I would say generally speaking, they're fairly minor, but I did want to point out to you that there were some changes. And now let's have a look at the Solutions Architect Expert cert. So as with the DevOps cert, we have 2 exams. It's a little different this time, though. There are only 2 exams. There's the Microsoft Azure Architect Technologies, the AZ-303, and follow that up with the AZ-304, the Microsoft Azure Architect Design exam. So think of these as implementation and architecture. So design and implement, to phrase it another way. And those 2 exams add up to your Azure Solutions Architect Expert certification. So let's just pop over to the Microsoft certification portal here, and I'm looking at the Azure Solutions Architect Expert exam. When I look at the homepage there, it has the exam details, the skills measured, lots of implement, design. So both sides of the coin. And if I look at the skills outline, I will see here both the AZ-304 and AZ-303 exams covered here. So one question I get from folks, especially when we're preparing for those associate or expert level certifications, is what do I do about Azure Access? I don't have my own subscription, and I'm here to tell you free Azure Access for exam prep is part of the package here. You don't need to have even so much as an Azure AD login, because the hands-on learning from Microsoft that's there to help you for these exams includes what they call Azure Sandbox to help you with those hands-on exercises. Go watch this video I have on YouTube. It'll explain it at a greater level of detail, but my point being that I don't have an Azure subscription is not an excuse to tackle these expert level certification tracks, bearing in mind that we need to have that experience, right? But that's all she wrote for our ultimate tour of the Azure certification paths, those available exams as we go into 2021. Thanks for watching. Take care, stay safe, drop me a note if any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.